Michael left me in the rain again because of another girl. He thought I'd keep chasing after him, but he didn't know that this time, I was really done. I deleted all his contacts and tried hard to avoid him. For some reason, he seemed to be missing me more. At the school celebration, he danced with a girl who used to bully me. Then he started dating my roommate late into the night. Eventually, he came up to me, holding another girl in his arms. "Still causing trouble, Jasmine?" he sneered. "If you keep this up, I'll have to get a new girlfriend for real." I looked at him and smiled gently. "Michael, your new girlfriend's pretty. I genuinely wish you two the best." The car screeched to a halt in the rain. Michael yanked the car door open and pulled me out from the back seat. I couldn't stay on my feet and fell into the mud. "Girls like you, who just can't give up, are rare," he said, looking down on me with a mocking laugh. "See her? The one in the passenger seat, she's my new girlfriend." I sat up slowly, wiping the mud from my face. The rain grew heavier, soaking my hair and plastering it to my face. With the mud washed off, my face looked even smaller and paler. Michael's eyes flickered, and he frowned. "You should just go home and stop following me." He turned to leave, but I lightly tugged the hem of his coat with my muddy hand. "So, are we breaking up now?" Laughter burst from inside the car. His new girlfriend piped up in a sugary voice. "Michael, your ex is pretty clingy, huh?" Michael chuckled, yanking his coat free with irritation. "Jasmine, that's enough. I'll admit I liked you once, but I'm over it now, got it?" I nodded, drenched and freezing in my wet clothes. "Then stop following me. I only kissed and hugged you, I didn't sleep with you, so I don't owe you anything. Got it?" I nodded again. "Yeah, got it." Without another word, he glanced at me one last time before getting back in the car. After that night, I fell sick and missed a couple of days of class. I deleted Michael's contact info. Even though I took a route past his building for class, I used to hope to run into him around campus. Now, if I saw his crowd from afar, I'd quickly duck out of sight. But these past few days, I kept bumping into him more than ever. I'd make sure to steer clear each time. Until the school celebration. Michael saw me and my roommate and came straight over. "Is Michael gonna ask you to dance the first dance again this year, Jasmine?" my roommate whispered. But Michael didn't ask me. He didn't even acknowledge me. He walked right past me and asked another girl to dance, someone who had bullied me before and had a crush on him. As Michael wrapped his arm around her waist and glided onto the dance floor, my fingers turned stone cold. "Shirley," my roommate, whispered carefully, "You okay, Jasmine?" I shook my head. "I'm fine. You all have fun. I think I'll head back." I had no right to interfere with who Michael liked or pursued. But he knew how terribly that girl bullied me. He used to feel bad for me and even stood up for me. But now, he seemed to have forgotten it all. I didn't want to cry, yet as I stepped out of the hall, tears rolled down uncontrollably. A week later, Michael started dating my roommate, Shirley. He'd bring her flowers and gifts every day. He'd sit with her openly while we were in class. During breaks, they'd kiss like no one else was around. Shirley's time at our dorm kept getting later and later. One day after class, Michael came to pick Shirley up and accidentally knocked over my backpack. A small acrylic charm, a gift from him, fell off. Too long had passed, I'd forgotten to remove it. Now it was broken. Michael raised an eyebrow at the broken charm and then looked at me. "Still keeping this? Sentimental much?" With no expression, I squatted to pick up the broken pieces and tossed them straight into the trash. As I walked away, silence stretched behind me. It wasn't until I reached the door that I heard a loud crash. It sounded like a desk being overturned, followed by Shirley's scream. The next morning, I was surprised to see Michael as I headed downstairs. He was with another new girl, pretty and a new face. "Jasmine," Michael called out to me. I didn't want to engage, but he blocked my way. "Still making a scene? If you keep this up, I'll change girlfriends again. I wanted to laugh but felt choked and couldn't. The Michael who trapped me in the booth's garden late at night kissed me passionately. The Michael who comforted me in my tears, swearing I'd be the only girl for him. Now, he seemed repulsively different. I stayed silent, and Michael seemed a little flustered. Jasmine, as long as you don't stir things up, everything between us is water under the bridge. I won't hold your deleting my contact info and avoiding me at school against you. I suddenly looked up and smiled faintly. Michael, your new girl is beautiful. Wish you happiness, honestly. Jasmine. I didn't turn back or stop my steps. For someone as proud as Michael, reaching out to me must have felt like swallowing his pride. It was never an equal footing between us. I should have curbed my desires long ago. Michael was a young master of the booths, while I was just an orphan they kindly took in. My dad was one of their drivers. For years, they supported me for my livelihood. I always remembered their kindness and knew my place. When you're young and your feelings awaken, who can really control it? I was too greedy, and this is the price I should pay. The only relief is that they don't know about what went on between Michael and me. And I'll bury this failed relationship deep inside. That night, I drank way too much by myself. Missed the dorm curfew. Had no choice but to bite the bullet and head back to that house. Michael's parents are on vacation, his grandpa's resting in the mountains. No elders around, so I wasn't worried. But then, as soon as I stumbled in all tipsy, I bumped into someone in the dark dining room. It startled me so much I almost screamed for help. Jasmine? Larry's voice spoke out when the light switched on. And when I saw the man in front of me clearly, my heart nearly stopped in terror. It took me a moment to stammer out his name, Larry. Larry frowned slightly at me. Been drinking? A little, just a class gathering. I was too flustered to look at him, and too drunk to stand steadily. Larry looked at me for a moment. Sit over there. I quickly obeyed and sat down on the sofa. I'll have someone make some hangover soup. You can drink it later. He was about to call someone when I jumped up nervously, grabbing his sleeve in a panic. No, don't bother. I'll be fine after some sleep. I'm not a booth. Even if the elders have been kind and caring toward me, I always remember my place and never cross boundaries. Larry pulled his hand away coldly. Dizzy and weak-kneed, his movement caused me to collapse to the floor. Larry's tall, and as I fell, my forehead hit his belt buckle. The sharp edge cut my skin, leaving a bloody trail. Tears of pain filled my eyes as I clutched the wound. Larry quickly pried my hand off, cupping my face to check the injury. Right then, unsteady footsteps suddenly echoed from the entryway. Michael's drunken voice followed. Larry's expression shifted slightly as he looked at me. My heart was pounding, scared he might connect the dots. In a panic, I embraced Larry's waist, burying my face to hide. Michael? He just made it through the entryway only to see his uncle leaning over, holding a girl close. A girl kneeling before Larry, arms wrapped around his waist in an intimate, suggestive pose. Michael sobered up fast, spinning around to get out of there. But in his haste, he knocked over a cabinet ornament. The noise was loud, pulling Michael up short. Out of everyone in the family, the person he feared most was this young uncle, Larry. And now, seeing him cozy with his girlfriend tonight, Michael wished he were blind. Sorry. Get out. Larry's voice wasn't loud, gentle as ever, but it sent Michael bolting. The door shut. Larry coldly pushed me aside. I quickly put distance between us, not daring to meet his gaze. The wound stung like fire, but I didn't move to touch it. I'm sorry, earlier, Afraid he'd realize Michael's right there, I stammered to explain. Larry glanced at me, seeing me listless and dazed on the floor, my face pale and dried blood on my swollen wound. His expression softened gradually. Come with me, let's take care of the cut. He turned and started going upstairs. I didn't delay, scrambling up though my legs felt like lead. Barely steadying myself on the sofa. Larry had gone a few steps, realizing I wasn't following. Jasmine. I avoided his gaze, tears burning in my eyes. I'll just put something on it in my room. No need to trouble you. He was silent for a few seconds. Suit yourself. And just like that, he resumed going upstairs. I slowly lifted my head and watched his retreating figure. Inside, everything was a mess. But whatever now, it's too late. I can only hope he didn't catch anything suspicious earlier. In a daze, I shuffled back to my room. A moment later, there was a knock on the door. I answered to find a servant handing me a bag. Miss Jasmine, Mr. Larry sent these ointments for you. I accepted the bag, staring at the contents blankly. Please thank him for me. All right, rest up. Watching them leave, a strange feeling washed over me, a touch of sadness I couldn't place. The next day, first thing at school, Michael cornered me. Between the hangover and secrets, I'd slept terribly. I really wasn't in the mood to deal with him. Pretending not to see, I turned to go. Jasmine. Michael didn't go after me. But what he said next froze me in my tracks. I think I'll tell my folks about us. I was dumbstruck. Michael, are you out of your mind? I was shaking with anger, icy panic clutching my chest. He stepped closer, frowning at the cut on my forehead. What happened to you? Not your concern. But answer me, why tell your uncle and aunt? We broke up, there's no us anymore. Who said we broke up? Michael sneered. Nicole, couples fight and make up all the time. Wasn't I just coming to make up? So we're still the same, you're still my girlfriend. Michael's grin was wicked. Jasmine, if you don't get back with me, I'll tell them how you came on to me. You stripped in front of me, got me riled up, how could I control myself? My face went pale. Michael, you're lying. You're pathetic. Rage boiled over, and I slapped him hard. Michael didn't dodge. My slap left his cheek marked with my fingers. Look, maybe I took it too far, okay? I admit it, I'm sorry. Michael rubbed his cheek, anger barely restrained. Consider that slap your payback. You cooled off now? He moved close, like before, hugging me. Jasmine, let's not fight, okay? I mess around, but it's just for fun with them. You know you're my favorite. He leaned to kiss me. I shivered and smacked him again. Michael, I'd rather die than get back with you. Say whatever you want. I've done nothing wrong and my conscience is clear. Jasmine, are you really gonna keep this up with me? Michael's face started getting darker. Coming from a rich family, he was the precious young master. Never been slapped. Not once. Since childhood, no one dared to touch him. But I slapped him twice. I know there's no benefit in falling out with Michael. But I'm just an orphan with nothing. Worst case? I'll end up with nothing again. I'm not causing drama, Michael. I'm just telling you. The moment you pushed me out of the car that night, we were done. I don't even like you anymore. I wiped the tears that were about to fall. If you want revenge, go for it. What I have now was given by you guys. If you take it all away, I won't complain. Jasmine, don't push me. You know, since I was a kid, whatever I wanted, I always got. But I'm human too, Michael. No matter how lowly, I won't keep liking you after being treated like dirt again and again. I know what I'm doing. Michael would never let me off easy. Yet I never thought he'd do something so insane. I got Helen's call just as I was leaving the library. It was noon, and the sun was making me drowsy. But I felt like I was plunged into an ice-cold cave. Jasmine, the driver, is outside the school. Can you come back? Helen, is something wrong? Helen's usually warm voice was oddly cold. Come back, and we'll talk. I left the school, uneasy. The whole way, I was on edge. Thinking about what Michael said before. Feeling like my heart was sinking into an abyss. When I first secretly dated Michael, it was sweet. I was naive, Michael had tons of experience. He'd tell me to do stuff. Though I was shy, I always went along. If Michael told everyone I was the one seducing him, I couldn't bear to face the kind and loving elders. I'd have no place to stay there. Just as I feared. When I got home and entered the living room, Helen tossed a stack of photos at me. In the photos, my hair's soaked, wearing a men's white shirt, smiling shyly at the camera. I remember that day. Michael and I were coming back from a date and got caught in the rain. We were both soaked. Michael thought it'd be cute, gave me his shirt to wear after a shower. I listened to him obediently. He seemed to like that outfit. That night, while kissing me endlessly, he almost lost control. Then he took tons of photos on his phone. Jasmine, I'll keep these pictures to myself. No one else can see them. He even made a secret album, all my photos. Jasmine, you've really let me down. Helen was furious, her face stormy. I've treated you like a daughter, never been unfair. How could you secretly send these photos to Michael? I stared at those pictures, speechless. I chose to wear the clothes, I agreed to the photos. Plus, I kept our relationship hidden from the family. In Helen's mind, I seduced Michael. How could I explain? They raised me. My life mirrored a privileged girl's. Owing them so much, I should be grateful. I couldn't embarrass them anymore. Helen, it's my fault. I had thoughts I shouldn't have. I kneeled and picked up the photos. Helen, don't worry. I've figured it out, won't do shameless things again. I'll move out today. These years of care, kindness, I won't forget. I took a deep breath, holding back tears, and bowed deeply. I failed your expectations. I'm sorry. I bowed again, I'll pack and leave now. Turning around, I prepared to go upstairs. But there I saw Larry, standing not far away. Not sure when he came back. A suit draped over his arm. Not sure how much he heard. I didn't dwell on it, just wanted to leave quickly. So I nodded and greeted him casually. What's going on here? Larry spoke up. Nothing, I'm heading upstairs. Nothing, then why the tears? I hadn't realized they'd started to flow since I turned around. Larry took the photo straight from my hand. I wanted them back, but his gaze stopped me. Just like Michael, Larry was intimidating to me. Even though he was the one who suggested adopting me. Giving me a home, years of stable life. All this over the photos? Larry glanced at the two people behind me. These photos aren't Jasmine's fault. What? Larry gave me a look and handed back the photos. I took them of Jasmine. Larry? But Michael said. Michael and Jasmine had a fight days ago. Larry casually smiled. The kid held a grudge and pulled a prank on Jasmine. Helen relaxed a bit, but looked puzzled at Larry. But Larry, why'd you take these photos of Jasmine? Yeah, Larry, Jasmine's still a kid. Jason chimed in disapprovingly. My head was spinning, looking at the man in front of me in disbelief. Until Larry came closer, took my hand. Now 21, not a child anymore. Larry looked down, gently ruffling my hair. Dating's not a crime. Things ended in a weird way. I somehow became Larry's little girlfriend. Helen apologized and scolded Michael. He's getting more out of control. Haven't you noticed he used to bully Jasmine? Now he's brazen enough to pull stunts like this. Jasmine's a girl, reputation matters. I'll definitely teach him a lesson this time. Michael was being a brat. Larry held onto my hand, let him come work at the company with me, get some training. Helen was instantly delighted. That's wonderful, Larry, I trust you completely. Teach him well and don't hold back. Don't worry, Larry said, then added, I'm taking Jasmine out, so we won't be home for dinner. Once in the car, Larry finally let go of my hand. He told the driver to start driving and asked me in a calm voice, "What do you feel like eating?" "Anything's fine." Larry mentioned an address to the driver and then opened the divider between us. "Jasmine," he turned to look at me, "I remember when you first came here, you were just 9. "Yes." I paused, a bit taken aback, and instinctively looked at him. "When did you start dating Michael?" "About a year ago. But we've broken up." "Do you still like him?" I was silent for a moment, a slight ache in my chest, but I gently shook my head. "No, I don't." Larry nodded slightly, turned back to me, "Are you sure?" I nodded, "I'm sure." "Tomorrow, you'll move out of the old house. Pack your things, and I'll have someone pick you up." "Where are you taking me?" "To my place. After all, right now, you're my girlfriend." "But, this isn't real." "I know you're just helping me out." "Do you not want to?" "No, it's not that, it's just. Jasmine, I'm just Michael's uncle. Age-wise, I'm only 8 years older than you," Larry said, lowering his gaze to me. "And if I remember correctly, you were the one who made the first move." Thinking back to that night, I found myself speechless. Seeing me like this, he softened his tone, "Plus, staying with me means Michael won't dare to bother you again. It's a temporary solution, you should think it over." I moved into Larry's place. It was quite a bit closer to my school. Larry was busy most of the time, so I mostly stayed in the dorm. Only on weekends would he come to pick me up. Michael had been arranged to intern with the company a few days ago, directly transferred overseas. He was afraid of Larry and didn't dare to slack off with work, so he was incredibly busy and had no time to bother me. A month later, when he returned from his overseas business trip, he came to school to find me. I was just getting out of Larry's car. "See you," I waved my hand to leave, but Larry called out to me, "Jasmine. Do you need something?" I took a couple of steps toward the car. Larry grabbed my wrist, pulling me close. I was a little flustered, afraid of being seen by passing classmates. "I'll pick you up this evening," he said, releasing me as I quickly stood aside. But suddenly, someone grabbed my arm tightly, "Jasmine." Michael's eyes seemed to burn with anger. "What are you doing? Are you hitting on my uncle now?" he snapped. "Michael," Larry stepped out of the car, gripping Michael's wrist. "Let go," he commanded. "If nothing unexpected happens, in 2 years after Jasmine graduates, you'll need to start calling her Aunt." Larry's gaze was serious as he looked at Michael. "So from this minute on, you better show her some respect." Michael was clearly shocked. I was also a bit taken aback, looking at Larry. "Jasmine, head back to your dorm." "No, you can't." Michael was in complete turmoil. "Jasmine is my girlfriend. This is not a funny joke." "No one's joking with you." Larry's cold gaze landed on Michael's hand. "Let go." "I don't believe it, I just don't." Michael shook his head repeatedly. "Jasmine, you're doing this on purpose, just to piss me off, aren't you?" Seeing Michael not letting go of me, Larry called over an assistant, "Get him out of here." Michael wanted to put up a fight, but Larry gave him a steady look. "Go ahead, try causing trouble again." In the end, Michael was reluctant, but he didn't dare make a scene. Once Michael got in the car, Larry walked over to me. "Don't overthink it, I'll handle everything," he said. "Got it. I'll pick you up tonight, head on up," he said, watching me enter the dorm before driving away. As soon as I stepped inside, Shirley turned coldly and walked out. She had dated Michael for half a month and was dumped. Only after the breakup did she realize she was probably used as a pawn because Michael was trying to make me jealous. Knowing this truth, she couldn't help feeling resentful toward me. I actually wanted to make amends with her. Shirley was one of the first friends I made in college, and we had always gotten along well. If it weren't for Michael, we wouldn't have fought. "Jasmine, can you two patch things up?" "Honestly, Michael's such a jerk, I can't blame Shirley for being mad. That's how I felt too. A sweet girl like Shirley was no match for someone like Michael. I should go talk to her. Yes, you both should talk it out, you're roommates, after all. I ended up talking to Shirley for a long time. She still had a bit of a grudge but was ultimately willing to mend our friendship. In the evening, Larry came to pick me up as promised. He must have been out drinking because he reeked of alcohol. I barely stepped into the car before he pulled me close. I tried to push him away, nervous about his behavior, but he just held me tighter. Jasmine, he muttered. You're drunk, I said. Yeah, I'm drunk, but very clear-minded, he replied, eyes softly fixed on me. Is that okay? I didn't reply, but I didn't shake my head either. Over time, my opinion of him had gradually changed. What initially made me uncomfortable gradually turned into wanting to spend more time together. Larry pulled me into his arms again, leaning down to kiss me. His lips were full of the strong, biting scent of alcohol. I don't drink, so I felt overwhelmed and tried to push back. He opened his eyes, looking at me, and stopped. With a slightly tired look, he buried his face against my neck. Jasmine, he said, voice a bit hoarse, adjusting his tie, my head hurts. Something shifted at that moment, my usual fear of him seemed to fade, as his rare vulnerability softened me. Should we go to a doctor? No hospitals, he shook his head, held me closer, finding a more comfortable position. The smell of hospitals makes it worse. What should we do then? I saw you massaging the old man before. Larry lifted his eyelids to look at me. Can you do it for me too? The driver in the front seat couldn't help but snort, quickly covering it up. I quietly murmured, are you really drunk, or are you just pretending? This didn't seem like the usual Larry at all. I took a deep breath and gently pressed his temples. If this feels uncomfortable, just say so, I said. After a while, he didn't respond. I whispered again, how's the pressure now? Moments later, Larry suddenly reached up and held my wrist. Stop talking. You're noisy, he said. I held my breath involuntarily, pressing a little harder. In the dimly lit car, the corners of Larry's mouth seemed to hint at a subtle smile. If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I'd have thought I imagined it. After that day, things between Larry and me seemed to get a bit closer. When I used to stay in the old house, I was scared of him. Whenever I saw him coming from afar, I'd avoid him like a cat dodging a mouse. But now we lived under the same roof, I dared to talk back to him occasionally. He's usually really busy, but every Friday night he would unfailingly come to pick me up. Though we lived in the same house, we slept in separate rooms. Larry's a cool, reserved kind of guy, a gentleman with self-restraint. Except for weekend nights when he'd ask for a goodnight kiss, there weren't many acts of intimacy. As we spent time together, I gradually let my guard down. For the first time in a decade, I felt a sense of ease as if I were at home. All my uncles and aunts treated me well, but as a kid in someone else's home, you're sensitive and mature too early. Even during the months Michael and I were in a sweet phase, he treated me the best he could, but it never felt like this. With Larry, it felt different. I didn't even realize when I started looking forward to Fridays. Waiting for his car to be parked downstairs. Opening the car door, seeing him. Snuggling in the living room with a random movie, looking forward to that weekend goodnight kiss. I loved how he called me Jasmine. It felt so endearingly soft. Like being a little kid again. I could be a bit spoiled without worrying about being disliked or thrown out. Just before summer break, Larry had to go on a 2-week business trip to France. He wanted to take me along, but I had an important exam. So, I couldn't go with him. After the exam, Shirley invited our dorm mates for a night out to unwind. I showered back at the dorm and, while waiting to blow dry my hair, called Larry on video. It took a moment for him to pick up. He was wearing a navy blue shirt, sitting in an office-like room. He wasn't coming back for another 3 days. Yet, since his second day away, I'd been missing him. Heading out? Gonna hang with my roommates, maybe have some drinks. I'll send a car to drop you guys off and pick you up afterward. No need, it's just my roommates and classmates. How was the exam? Not bad. I looked at Larry on the screen, couldn't resist pretending to touch his face. You're back in 3 days, right? You want me to pick you up? Larry chuckled. You drive? I rolled my eyes, got my license right after the entrance exam. Alright then, you can pick me up. Okay, I'm gonna blow dry my hair. Jasmine. Yeah? Larry stared at me tenderly through the screen for a moment. Call me when you get back tonight. Got it. I got you a gift. On screen, my eyes turned into little crescents from smiling. You're the best. Go dry your hair, you'll catch a cold if you don't. Roger that. On the way to the party, I was in high spirits. So much so, I ended up drinking a bit more. Mostly beer and fruit wine, and low alcohol cocktails since we had mostly girls. But mixing these drinks got me tipsy fast. Shirley then brought over a drink. Jasmine, she said. She handed me the drink. Have one. Despite the dizzy feeling, I grinned foolishly at her. So if I drink this, we're good. Shirley giggled. Yeah, finish it, and we're good. I wasn't one to be dramatic, so I downed it, and so did she. Wanna chat outside? It was chaotic in the room, impossible to hold a conversation. I followed Shirley out. This room's empty. Let's sit for a bit, she said as she led me to the end of the hallway, opening a private room door. But I hesitated to step in. Shirley. She turned, and her smile faded completely. If I'm right, there's someone in there, right? My headache worsened, and I barely held onto the wall for balance. Growing up parentless in a foster home, Jasmine couldn't possibly be naive. Jasmine, don't blame me. Shirley grabbed my arm. Michael made me bring you. If I didn't, he'd post my photos online. Her pale face twisted into a bitter smile. I really like him, but he never cared for me. I'm doing this for myself, not for him. I can't afford disgrace for myself or my family. She pulled me hard, pushing me into the room. When I tried to resist, Michael's grip on me was firm. Shirley let go, looking blank. Shirley? I called out futilely. Her eyes closed as she shut the door. Darkness enveloped me. Michael pressed his body against mine, his scent of alcohol overwhelming. Jasmine, he whispered. I should have been with you sooner, shouldn't have cared that you were young. I struggled fiercely, but Michael was surprisingly strong. My body started feeling hot, out of control. He turned me to face him and kissed me hard. I wanted to push him away, but an overpowering urge pulsed within me, controlling me. Larry hates unclean things, Jasmine. If I sleep with you, he'll never want you again. In this life, even if you die, you're gonna die at my hands, Michael said. My dress was torn open by him, and the cold air hit me instantly. I was so messed up by the drugs and alcohol that my brain was totally out of it. Yet I got a few seconds of clarity because of it. When Michael leaned in to kiss me again, I used all my strength to knee him hard. But my so-called full strength was just a minor inconvenience to Michael. He only grunted in pain and then reached out, gripping my neck. Jasmine, when did you start hooking up with Larry right under my nose? So many women wanted to get in his bed over the years, and he ignored them all. Why you? He knew you were with me. Michael's handsome face twisted slightly with anger. I couldn't breathe, desperately clawing at his hands. Just as I was about to pass out, Michael suddenly let go. He threw me onto the couch. But as he came down on me again, the door suddenly burst open. I felt a weight lift off me. I heard a thud and Michael let out a painful scream. Then, I saw Larry's angry face. His suit jacket fell over me, covering my almost bare body. Jasmine. He bent down to pick me up. In his arms, surrounded by his scent and warmth, I felt safe. I couldn't help but bury my face in his chest, tears streaming down. "Uncle, why are you here? Wasn't he supposed to be in France? He wasn't coming back for 3 more days. Finished his work early." Larry held me tighter. "It's okay now." He paused as he walked. I felt him lean down, softly kissing my forehead. In the car, I started acting up. But I couldn't help it. Shirley spiked my drink with something weird. I felt hot all over, like ants were biting me. By the time we got to the hospital, I'd practically stripped Larry. My fever made him feel so cool. I just wanted to cling to him. Larry was a bit helpless but composed himself. "Jasmine." I wrapped myself around him. "Larry, kiss me." I cupped his face and kissed him. My throat felt on fire. His lips were cool, with a hint of mint. I wanted more. "Larry, I need water." "I'll get it for you." He tried to move, but I held on tighter. "You're good enough." Larry wrapped me in his coat and carried me to the room. "Take a shower first." He brought me to the bathroom. Water was cooler than usual, just enough. At first, I felt better, but it wasn't long before the heat flared again. Larry's shirt and pants were soaked from the shower. The thin fabric clung to him, making him look too tempting. I couldn't help but latch onto him again. This time, Larry didn't push me away. Instead, he sat me on the sink, grabbing my chin and kissing me deeply. He kissed me until I was fuzzy-headed. Then he whispered in my ear, "Jasmine, still uncomfortable?" I nodded. "Wanna feel better?" He lifted me. "Hold on tight. But nothing comes for free. To feel better, you gotta endure some pain at first." I almost kicked Larry off the bed. But I was still grumpy. "You're a liar, you're just bullying me." Larry held my squirming legs, pinning my wrists above my head. He leaned in with a teasing, wicked grin. "Yeah, I'm bullying you." That smile made me dizzy. He ended up messing with me the whole night. Michael stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks. Bad luck for him, my uncle put him out with 1 kick, breaking 2 ribs. As soon as he healed, he was shipped overseas. As for Shirley, Larry asked what I wanted to do. I thought about it a lot. If I pursued it, spiking my drink wasn't minor. It'd mean criminal charges. She wouldn't graduate, and her record would be stained for life. But I'm no saint. In the end, I chose to report it, letting the police handle it. The police results weren't public, but not long after, Shirley got expelled from school. Her parents picked her up. I was at school. She was in tears leaving the dorm with them. I felt a bit bad. Still, you do wrong, you face the music. Larry could tell I was down when he called. He drove me home that night. No fancy dinner that time. Larry cooked steak and pasta himself. We even had a bit of red wine. While chilling on the balcony later, I asked, "Have you liked me for a while?" Larry swirled his wine. "I'm not a creep." I laughed, not saying years ago. He sipped his drink. "Before you started secretly dating Michael. So why'd you never tell me?" Larry set down his glass, reaching out. I took his hand, snuggling into him. "If I hadn't dumped Michael, would you never have told me?" "No." Larry stroked my hair. "I wavered when I saw you weren't happy with him." "When?" "That night I came back late, and you were in the garden crying. I heard you calling Michael over and over, but he didn't pick up. In the end, he blocked you. I thought you'd cry a lot harder, but you didn't." Larry paused here. He held me a bit tighter, his voice softened. "Instead of crying, you muttered something to yourself." "What did I say?" Larry kissed me on the head. "You said, 'No big deal, Jasmine. It's not like it's the first time you've been abandoned. Nothing to cry over.'" Tears streamed down my face silently. What I said was true. After my mom and dad divorced, my dad raised me all by himself. When I was little, I hated my mom for leaving me. But when I later heard she passed away from illness, I felt really sad. Later on, even my dad left me. Growing up, I constantly dealt with goodbyes. So, as an adult, breakups didn't feel as painful anymore. It was like, being alone just became the norm. Not anymore. Larry gently patted me. Jasmine, I'm going to be with you from now on. Larry, why do you even like me? Larry looked down at my tear-stained eyes. At first, it was pity. You were just a little girl, an orphan, so it made me feel for you. Then, watching you grow up, trying to act like everything was okay even while you were barely holding it together, I just felt so bad for you. But pity and sympathy aren't exactly love. Larry chuckled. Then I found out you were secretly dating Michael, and I couldn't sleep for 2 weeks straight. That's when I knew something had changed. If you like me so much, why were you so mad that night I got drunk and hugged you? I thought you were using me to make Michael jealous. I'm not that petty. I poked his chin, stopped liking him a long time ago. What about me? I felt a bit dazed, looking at Larry now, but also recalling the boy from over 10 years ago. Lean and handsome, standing like a young poplar tree. The room was filled with people. I was wearing a white flower on my chest. Dad's funeral had just wrapped up. They were discussing what would happen to me, this orphaned girl. Dad died on a work call, and their family was decent. Grandpa was a good man. He took care of all the funeral arrangements. He even opened a bank account for me and deposited the compensation money there. Some distant relatives suddenly appeared, wanting to adopt me. This was presumably the easiest option for them. Michael's parents had the same thought. I was only 9. But I sorta understood I was supposed to live with this unknown aunt and uncle in another state. These relatives, who never showed up before, suddenly acting all charitable, even a kid could see through it. Probably because of the $200,000 compensation. But 9-year-old me just felt helpless, like a floating weed going wherever the current took me. But Larry suddenly spoke up, keeping me in the family. It's just another pair of chopsticks, we can afford to raise her. Her father died working for us. If we raise her, we'll have a good reputation. After saying that, Larry walked up to me, held my hand. Jasmine, do you want to stay? I was terrified like a scared bird. But when Larry took my hand, I felt like a ship finally docked safely. Deep down, I just felt that this unrelated uncle was more trustworthy than some so-called aunt and uncle. I nodded, crying, clinging to his hand. Larry wiped away my tears. Then stay. He was spoiled at home. The old man adored him, he looked a lot like him, plus he was smart and calm. Larry rarely asked for anything, so when he did, of course, the old man agreed right away. A chauffeur's daughter, yet I grew up like a half-princess. My life changed course because of Larry. Full circle, the man I once shyly called uncle became my boyfriend, gave me a home. My eyes welled up. Larry. Thank you. Jasmine, you know what I want to hear. I wrapped my arms around his neck, not wanting him to see my messy tears. He wouldn't know that as a teenager, I often dreamed, and every time, the person would look like Larry. As I grew older, fear took over. Thinking I would never be able to touch that dream, I didn't dare to keep discussing it. So I tried to forget it completely. Young love stifled before it grew. But luckily, fate brought us back together. Larry, carry me back to the bedroom, and I'll tell you everything. Okay. Larry picked me up. I rested my head on his shoulder, feeling his heartbeat. Turns out, every love has its footprints to follow. Back then, 17-year-old Larry held 9-year-old Jasmine's hand. Now, 21-year-old Jasmine was ready to give him her life.